You're on Bharat Shakti and I'm Nitin Gokhale. Today we are going to discuss a book which is recently published, authored by good friend Air Vice Marshal Arjun Subramaniam, but more importantly on a subject and on a personality who I have admired for a long time, and I think that admiration also translates to Arjun's own authorship of that book. This book is on Lieutenant General Rostum Nanavatty, retired as Northern Army Commander almost 23 years ago, 22 years ago? 2003, so 22 years ago. But someone who I looked up to amongst many other leaders in the military that time. And this is the result of that work between the two. Arjun's written it, but most of it concentrates on General Nanavatty's career. One of India's finest generals, cerebral, as well as a military leader in a true sense. Thank you very much, sir. We are honored with your presence in our studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure. Arjun, you've now become a military historian of repute, prolific. This is your third book. So we'll talk about it. But let me start with General Nanavatty. And one of the things that runs through this, the thread, that common thread that I found reading this book, was how committed and how passionate you were about the profession of soldiering. And throughout the career, through your entire career, all your ranks, you've sort of displayed that from how Arjun has brought it out. And something that I always wanted to ask you, despite all the setbacks, hardships you would have faced there, your faith in the men that you led was unwavering. How was that? I mean, what was that equation?
That's true, but let me put it simply. It was a profession that I loved. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed every aspect of the profession. So it wasn't difficult really, and I was soldiering with, to begin with the Gorkha soldier, and in many ways he is a born soldier. In many ways he's easy to train. He wants to do the things the right way. He's very disciplined because he comes from an environment where all these characteristics play a great role. I mean, it means survival.
Sure.
In especially in the upper reaches of the Himalayas. So yes, I really enjoyed my 40 years in the army.
Yeah, that is very evident in the way. And what, to me, the most striking aspect which Arjun has also mentioned and has brought it out, was how meticulous you were in keeping notes. Right from the beginning, right from your early days, young days, and till the end, you kept notes about your days, your operations, your command, your leadership.
Yeah. I never really, I must say this, that I often started a diary, the conventional diary.
Sure.
Every day I often started this in various jobs, but I never could keep it through a tenure. So much was happening, etc. But so what I did was, anything I wrote and I felt would be useful in service. I mean, I may have written something early.
So you felt it was useful?
Yeah, I felt it would. I mean, if you wrote notes on a certain aspect of soldiering in a certain environment, and then 5-10 years down the line you were in a similar environment, those notes definitely helped. Then you built on policy. And like I said to Arjun, I had this nasty habit as far as the staff was concerned. All policy letters and my own instructions, I used to draft myself. So I just felt, even if they were pencil drafts, I felt that subsequently they might be of help. So that's how it started.
That's how you kept it also all along, because
But since you asked the question, Nitin, I would say, and I recently read it in a Pakistan Army journal. They insist that officer cadets in the anything to do I would insist on the same thing in the IMA. Even if 5 or 10% people continued this practice after leaving the academy, it would be immensely useful from the archival or storage of information point of view.
Absolutely, I agree, because in a similar way, in a small way, I have done this with my own notebooks from 1984 onwards,
Yeah.
and they come in extremely handy
Yeah.
to go back to, say, Manipur situation in 1997
That's
or
right.
2001, something of that kind. But let me turn to Arjun as a thing. You've written about this in the book, and let people read this book. That how did you choose General Nanavatty as the subject of of this military biography, as you call it rightly? But it has taken. You described this as the hardest book that you've written, and why is that?
There are a couple of reasons. One is that writing a biography is tough because you have to ensure that you have multiplicity of sources available to you in order for it to be authentic and for it to be objective. And when you talk about multiplicity of resources, you needed primary sources of material, you needed conversations, or you needed interviews, sources of materials with peers, colleagues, seniors and juniors, and you need to have adequate amount of secondary information on that particular period about which you're writing about. So, and then you need to triangulate all these sources of information to come to the closest possible sequence of events or what happened at that time in the absence of adequate declassified information.
Absolutely.
So you see, everything I've written about in the book has not yet moved into the realm of unclassified material as far as the MOD or the Army headquarters is concerned. So to retain some amount of accuracy, there had to be double the amount of research that one had to do to ensure that you don't get caught napping by somebody from within his ecosystem who says you got it all wrong.
Right, absolutely. I can identify it completely with you, because when I wrote the book on Siachen, that was my greatest dilemma. It is still not been declassified. One of the offers I got from the MOD Historic Division was that you can write the history, authentic history, based on the book, the documents that we are going to release or declassify, is between 1984 and 1993. Beyond that, you cannot write. So I said, it's of no use. I mean, after so many years, 40 years we have completed on Siachen, for instance. So I made it anecdotal, as you are aware. You've reviewed it very nicely at that point in time. So I can completely understand what you're saying. That apart, I think I'm amazed and impressed, I must say, with the breadth of your research and the number of interviews you have conducted.
So here I must say I'm a beneficiary of General Nanavatty's meticulous staff work. So when after a lot of cajoling he finally decided to allow me to write his biography, the first thing he did was to put down all the colleagues whom he served with over his entire career, every tenure of his, with known telephone numbers and email IDs, and said that, look, these are the people who I served with. You please pick and choose who you want to call up and who you want to speak with, and then I leave it to the two of you as to how you orchestrate that conversation. And he also made it a point to include in that list people who are known to be his critics also.
Which is his large-heartedness, certainly.
Yeah, exactly. So that was one of the reasons, that was one of the methodologies by which I could reach out to so many people in such a short period of time, including 2 former army chiefs, a former governor of J&K and a former Home and Defense Secretary. So yes, to a large extent it was his meticulous approach that allowed me to access several people in the shortest possible time.
True. Otherwise, one of the challenges is always to find out who has been with him, who served with him, if you're writing something particular. Because I have again written 2 biographies, one on Mr. Cow, the founder of RNAW.
Yeah,
it was very difficult because there was hardly anything available. Fortunately, friends, family, the organization helped, and we did that. But I can completely understand what you must have gone through. But thanks to his meticulous maintenance of, maintaining the diary and the contacts, probably it came into help. But let me turn to you, General Nanavatty. 2 of the subjects close to my heart, you have served there as a leader, military leader. One is, of course, Siachen, 102 Brigade Commander, and Northeast. So let me first ask you about Siachen. That tenure was during a time when there was no ceasefire. I mean, you were always under fire, there was exchange of fire. Also, it was very primitive in many senses because it was just, the operation had just begun in 1984 and you were there just about 4 or 5 years later. Sorry, a little later, 10 years later, I think.
No, 5 years later.
5 years later, yeah, 88. 87, 88. Yeah. So, it wasn't really as comfortable as people say there. What were the main challenges there that time in Siachen?
Nitin, my mission was very clear. It was a stated mission laid down by higher headquarters that there will be no the AGPL. There will be no sort of, that is what I had.
It's sacrosanct.
Yeah, is sacrosanct.
Right.
And that was my mission.
Sure.
I also felt, to put it in a few words, that because we were occupying the heights along the Saltoro range, we were paying a huge price in terms of maintenance issues, in terms of survival, pure and simple survival because of the altitude and the cold and the conditions there. And I felt very strongly that if we are paying this price, we need to ensure that we dominate the enemy